Now, for the second day in a row, the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, has been criticising the Prime Minister on his social media platform X. The row has escalated since yesterday, when it was revealed that Home Office Minister Jess Phillips had rejected calls for a government-led inquiry into historical child sexual exploitation in Oldham, saying instead it would be better for the local council to commission it themselves, as Rotherham and indeed Telford had done previously. Now Musk has taken aim at Sir Keir Starmer's time as head of the Crown Prosecution Service. Kemi Nzeram joins me now. Kemi, what's afoot?
Alex, as you say, Donald Trump's current right-hand man has been sending a barrage of increasingly incendiary tweets criticising Sir Keir Starmer in connection with the prosecution of child rape gangs. Today, the tweets intensified, a particularly inflammatory one, using very strong language, I must warn you, accused Sir Keir of being, and I quote here, complicit in the rape of Britain. Now, all of this obviously presents Number 10 with a bit of a conundrum, to respond or not to respond. So far, they have said nothing, but the Health Secretary this morning, before Mr Musk really got going, had this to say about actually working with Mr Musk.
Some of the criticisms that Elon Musk has made, I think, are misjudged and certainly misinformed, but we're willing to work with Elon Musk, who I think has got a big role to play with his social media platform to help us and other countries to tackle this serious issue. So if he wants to work with us and roll his sleeves up, we'd welcome that.
Because it's not quite clear whether Elon Musk's assault on X are helpful or unhelpful to Labour. Actually, you can make a case either way. But of course, it's not just the Labour Party affected, is it? There is another party in all this.
It's not just the Labour Party. Recall that Mr Musk recently met with Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform, reportedly offered to bankroll Reform too. Well, he's also been tweeting about, rather controversially, I must say, about the jailed far-right agitator Stephen Yaxley Lennon, who you and viewers may know better as Tommy Robinson. Well, this evening, Reform began a series of events, conferences, mini-conferences, if you like, ahead of the local elections. And Mr Farage was asked directly whether he agreed with what Mr Musk has been tweeting.
He has a whole range of opinions, some of which I agree with very strongly, and others of which I'm more reticent about. Oh, having him as a supporter is very helpful to our cause. I mean, goodness me. I mean, he's an absolute hero figure, particularly to young people in this country. So, yes, he's very helpful indeed. Now, look, everyone says, well, what about his comments on Tommy Robinson? Look, my position is perfectly clear on that. I never wanted Tommy Robinson to join UKIP. I don't want him to join Reform UK, and he won't be.
So there remains an unanswered question here. Consider the special relationship. Well, Donald Trump will be president of the USA again in less than a fortnight. To what extent does it really matter to UK diplomacy, to UK politics, what Elon Musk thinks?
Indeed, one of many unanswered questions, I suspect. Kemi, thanks very much indeed. Now, when I spoke earlier to Sir Davy, I asked him what he made of Elon Musk's comments.
I think he's wrong. He doesn't really understand what's going on in our country. His comments, for example, on these gangs shows he doesn't even understand the facts. So I hope we won't give him any more attention because he doesn't understand our country. And I think we as politicians and the media here should have the debate focused on people who do understand what's going on.
Sir Davy. Now, as Kemi mentioned just a moment ago, one party which is looking to benefit from Elon Musk's intervention is Reform UK, who are kicking off their campaign for this year's local elections. Well, joining me now is the polling expert, Professor Sir John Curtis. Sir John, very good to have you with us again. Thanks very much. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Well, now, a bunch of, well, we've been calling them rather politely conferences. These are Reform rallies in the run-up to election. It's anything but coincidental. How do you read it?
Well, the truth is that a crucial objective that Reform has set out for themselves is to actually turn it from the limited company that it was in July to actually a fully functioning political party that has activists up and down the country, activists who are willing to stand in local elections. One of the fundamental failures of the Eurosceptic movement in the UK in the last 10 years, despite its success in the 2016 referendum, is that it's never established a permanent, stable party organisation. We had that transition from UKIP to Brexit and now to Reform. Reform are now clearly trying to embed themselves much more deeply in the British public and in British political life. And frankly, that is a challenge they need to meet. If they are going to do well in these local elections, they need, first of all, to find candidates. To find candidates, you need activists. Activists who are willing to stand and activists who are willing to distribute leaflets. And that is the challenge that Reform face. And indeed, that is the objective that they now have set for themselves.
OK, the flip side of the coin, the challenge to the bigger established parties, is it dangerously complacent, for instance, for Labour perhaps to feel, oh, well, this is great, rub their hands with glee, because we know, don't we, that Reform are simply taking votes off the Conservatives? Is it really that simple still?
It isn't still that simple. It's still the case that Reform find it easier to attract Conservative voters than they do Labour voters, but they are now finding it easier to pick up Labour voters than they did. Though the truth is, at the end of the day, but part of what's going on, I mean, Labour's vote, you know, it's down heavily. It's down by about 8 points since the general election. It's scattering to the four winds. Some of them have gone to the Conservatives, some to the Democrats, some to the Greens, but some to Reform. And in fact, part of what's going on is that Labour are losing votes to the Conservatives, but then the Conservatives are losing votes to Reform. So you end up with Reform up and Labour down. But actually, the pattern of the movement is a bit more complicated than simply Reform taking votes from Labour, albeit Reform are now beginning to take votes from Labour.
Right. In terms of poll watching, what really matters then in terms of the Musk intervention? Is it the comments on X, Twitter, or potentially the money?
The only reason why Musk's comments on Twitter are getting the airtime they do is because Musk is deemed to be newsworthy. That, in a sense, is a judgment that you as journalists make. But it's not clear that Mr. Musk is particularly influential so far as public opinion is concerned. On the other hand, if he were to be willing to give Reform a significant amount of money, and Reform were able to use that to help it to build up its party organisation the way that I previously outlined, that could be a very useful help to Reform. Though at the end of the day, the advice still would be to also start raising from ordinary folk inside the UK, because in the long run, that's the only way in which you're going to establish a proper party organisation.
Right. So, John, I think you just very elegantly told me off there for mentioning Musk. We'll leave it there. We're out of time. Thanks very much indeed for being with us.